Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into something new? Today, we're tackling .NET Aspire and ABP Studio, two tools that, at first glance, seem kind of similar.
Yeah, they both promise to make building applications, easier, smoother,
Hmm.
but the way they go about it, totally different.
Right. And figuring out which one is right for you,
Yeah.
that's what we're here for.
Like, it's almost like, think about it this way.
Yeah.
You've got a Swiss Army knife, right? Super
Yeah, right.
useful.
Yeah.
But then you've got a really high-end, like, chef's knife.
Right.
Both great in the kitchen.
Sure.
But you wouldn't use them for the same thing, would you?
Absolutely not. And that's a great analogy because we want you to walk away from this deep dive knowing exactly which tool is right for your particular situation.
Exactly.
So let's kick things off by talking about .NET Aspire first. This is your go-to for building applications specifically for the cloud.
Cloud native, yeah.
It's all about making those distributed systems, the ones that need to be observable, ready for production.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be tricky. But .NET Aspire really aims to simplify that whole process.
Yeah, think of it as like the scaffolding for your cloud project. It sets up a structured environment and it handles a lot of those configurations that can be a real headache, especially when you're dealing with multiple services, right?
Right, yeah.
Imagine you're building a house. .NET Aspire is like having, the walls, the plumbing, the electrical, all kind of pre-built. You still get to personalize, furnish it to your liking, but that core infrastructure, it's ready to go.
Okay, I like that. So you're saying .NET Aspire is the scaffolding, and then ABP Studio. That's where we bring in, the architect.
Yeah. ABP Studio is like that experienced architect handing you a blueprint that's tailored to your needs.
I like it.
And it's a desktop application that really streamlines development using something called the ABP framework.
Okay.
And it takes efficiency to a whole new level, especially with these complex architectures we're seeing more and more of, like microservices or modular monoliths.
Okay, so modular monoliths, for those who aren't familiar, break it down for us.
Sure, think of it like a really well-organized toolbox, right? Each tool has its own compartment.
Yeah.
They all work together, but you can modify one tool, even replace it, without messing up the whole box.
Right.
ABP Studio, it excels at designing those modular structures. It makes sure your application, even as it grows, it stays manageable.
And that is key because nobody wants to be stuck with a tangled mess of code down the line.
Oh, absolutely not. Nobody.
So speaking of avoiding those headaches, let's talk about integration packages. This is where things get a little
Interesting. Yeah.
interesting. Exactly.
A little different. Yeah.
Because they approach it, again, in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So with ABP framework, you're getting direct control, direct interaction within your application's code.
Yeah, think of them like specialized plugins. They just slot right into your workflow.
Okay.
Need to work with a database, let's say MongoDB.
Sure.
ABP framework has a package for that. And it lets you, in your code, directly query and work with the data. You can leverage all the ABP framework features, transactions, data access, all built in.
So it's like you've got a direct line to the database. You're speaking its language.
Exactly, right there in your code.
Okay. So then with .NET Aspire, it's a different approach.
A little different, yeah. .NET Aspire, it's more about managing how the external tool, like your database, interacts with the application within that .NET Aspire ecosystem.
I see.
So same example, MongoDB Net Aspire helps you configure that database connection, monitor its health, manage its life cycle.
Okay. So with ABP framework, I am hands-on with the code, interacting directly.
Directly, yeah.
And with .NET Aspire, it's more about managing and monitoring that connection, but within its own little world.
Exactly. It really depends on how much control you want, what your project actually needs. There's no one right answer.
And that's a perfect segue, because speaking of different approaches, let's talk about starter templates. These are like the blueprints for how your application is going to be structured. In ABP Studio, I've got to say, they kind of knock it out of the park here because they give you these pre-built templates that are not only comprehensive, they're ready for production.
Production ready, yeah.
We're talking about templates for layered monoliths, modular monoliths, even microservices, all set up with best practices already in place.
It's like choosing from a catalog of, architectural designs for your app. Simple blog, there's a template. Complex e-commerce platform with a bunch of services. Covered.
Wow.
And these templates aren't just bare bones. They come with logging, security settings, even performance stuff already baked in.
Okay, so you're not only saving time on the initial setup,
Right.
You're getting a head start on making sure this thing is built right from day one.
From the ground up.
Okay, so .NET Aspire, I'm guessing a little different?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
They take a more minimalist approach. Their templates, they give you a basic structure. It's pre-integrated with .NET Aspire libraries,
Okay.
which is great for prototyping, just experimenting with the framework.
So if I want to play around, test some things out.
Exactly, it's perfect for that.
Okay.
But if you're aiming for a production-ready application right out of the gate, you're going to be putting in some extra work to configure those additional features.
So it sounds like with ABP Studio, it's like having a whole team of expert architects and engineers who've already done a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, they've laid the groundwork.
Whereas .NET Aspire is giving you the tools and the guidance, but you're going to be building a lot more from the ground up.
You've got the foundation, but you're doing more of the framing and the finishing yourself.
I like these analogies. It really helps paint the picture.
Good, good. Glad to hear it. So where should we dive in next? And that actually is a great segue to our next point, which is monitoring your application's health. Because whether you're building something simple or going all in on microservices, keeping an eye on what's happening under the hood.
Oh, it's crucial. It can be the difference between like a smooth launch and a total disaster.
Absolutely. And ABP Studio, they give you this fantastic tool for this called the Solution Runner panel.
Okay, so the Solution Runner panel, break it down for me.
All right, imagine you're a detective, right? You're on a case.
Okay, I'm following.
This panel, it's your evidence board. You see your HTTP requests. You can track those distributed events, even pinpoint those pesky exceptions.
Okay, so it's giving me the full picture, all the clues in one place.
Exactly. X-ray vision into your application.
Yeah.
You can see the health of your services, even how individual database queries are performing.
Wow, that's pretty granular.
And if you need to dig deeper, you've got detailed logs, traces. You can analyze every step.
Okay, so no more, like, guessing games. You know exactly where the issue is.
No more guessing games. You're spot on.
And I love that they've included, like, a full-featured browser right there in the tool.
Yeah, super handy.
Because who wants to be switching between applications all the time just to test an API or view a web page?
It's a real productivity killer.
It is. Okay, so .NET Aspire, I'm assuming they've got something similar.
They do. They have a dashboard. It might not have all the bells and whistles of the Solution Runner panel.
So not quite as feature-rich.
Yeah, not quite as visually rich either, but it definitely gets the job done, especially for those less complex applications.
So it's kind of like, if the Solution Runner panel is a high-powered microscope, the .NET Aspire dashboard is a really good magnifying glass.
Here you go. Another great analogy. You're on a roll.
I try. But okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about architecture, which is so crucial as your application grows, right?
Absolutely. Can't overstate that. And this is where ABP Studio really shines.
Okay, tell me more.
So we've talked about ABP Studio for building applications, but it's more than that. It's actually designed with architecture in mind.
Okay, so it's not just about writing the code. It's about designing the whole structure, the blueprint, from the get-go.
You got it. You can visually map out your entire system, whether it's simple or super complex, all within ABP Studio.
So I'm not just writing code. I'm architecting the entire thing from day one.
Exactly. Think of it like an interactive whiteboard, but for your application. You design your modules, define how they talk to each other, manage those dependencies, all in one place.
That's wild. And this is especially helpful for those modular monoliths we were talking about, right?
Especially helpful. Because you're breaking down your app into smaller pieces, and ABP Studio helps you visualize and organize those pieces so your code base stays clean.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, what about microservices? Because that's a whole other beast.
Oh, absolutely. ABP Studio, it's got you covered there too. Fantastic starting point for building those distributed systems. Design your services, define how they communicate, even manage their deployment to a Kubernetes cluster.
All within ABP Studio.
All within ABP Studio.
That's pretty impressive. So .NET Aspire, are they keeping up in this department?
.NET Aspire is great for building cloud-native applications, don't get me wrong, but that same level of upfront architectural design support, not quite there yet. Their focus is more on the implementation and deployment.
So it's like the difference between having an architect guide you through designing your dream home
We'll love that analogy.
versus having a really skilled construction crew just build it based on your sketches.
Exactly. Both can get you a functional house in the end.
Right.
But that architect, that guidance, it can make the process so much smoother, especially for complex projects.
Okay, that's a great way to put it. Now, speaking of structured approaches, we've got to talk about Kubernetes.
Yes, Kubernetes. The orchestra conductor of your containerized applications, making sure everything's in sync.
And ABP Studio, they haven't shied away from Kubernetes at all.
Oh, they've embraced it fully. The integration is seamless. Imagine this. You're building your microservice application, right? With ABP Studio, you design those services, build your Docker images, package them as Helm charts for deployment, even connect to services running in your Kubernetes cluster.
Hold on, all without leaving ABP Studio.
All within ABP Studio. It streamlines the entire process.
That's incredible. So it's like having a direct line from your development environment right to your Kubernetes cluster.
Exactly. No more integration headaches.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about ABP Studio as this standalone tool, but it's important to remember it's part of something much bigger, right?
Right. It's part of the ABP platform, and that's a key difference.
Okay, so when I choose ABP Studio, what am I actually getting?
You're not just getting a tool, you're tapping into this whole ecosystem. The ABP platform, it gives you access to the open source ABP framework, documentation, tutorials, a whole community.
So it's like joining a club, a community of people who are all passionate about building great software.
Exactly. You're not alone. You've got support, shared knowledge, all that good stuff.
And here's a thought do I have to choose. Can I use .NET Aspire and ABP Studio together?
That's the beauty of it. You often can. You can leverage .NET Aspire for managing your cloud infrastructure, for example, and then use ABP Studio to streamline your development, design your architecture, even simplify those Kubernetes deployments.
So it's a best of both worlds situation. I can pick and choose the features that make sense for my project.
Exactly. You're creating a custom toolkit that fits your exact needs.
That's incredible. But of course, all good things, they usually come with a price tag.
That's true. Let's talk licensing.
All right, so we've covered a ton of ground here comparing .NET Aspire and ABP Studio.
A lot to unpack.
But let's be real, budget matters, right? You've got to weigh those features against the cost.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where ABP Studio's approach, I think it's really smart. They've got the community edition, totally free.
Okay, love that.
Perfect for, individual developers, smaller projects.
With your feet wet, try it out.
Exactly. And then as your needs grow, boom, there's the commercial edition.
Yeah.
All those advanced features, plus it's bundled with the ABP licenses, so you're really buying into a whole ecosystem.
So it's like a try before you buy, but for the software, that'll probably make the buying decisions.
Exactly. It's very meta.
It is. Okay, so .NET Aspire, different approach, I'm guessing.
A little different, yeah. So Microsoft is behind .NET Aspire, and it's entirely free. No need to worry about different editions, no licensing costs, which can be a big plus for some.
A huge plus, for sure.
But it really highlights, I think, the core decision here for developers.
Yeah.
Do you want that comprehensive feature set, the support, all the bells and whistles of ABP Studio's commercial edition, and are you willing to invest in that?
Right.
Or does that free and open nature of .NET Aspire, does that fit better with your budget, your project? It's a classic trade-off.
There's always a trade-off, isn't there?
Always, always.
But that's what makes this field so interesting. There's always something new to consider, new ways to solve those problems.
Exactly. And whether you're drawn to that streamlined cloud-native approach of .NET Aspire or that comprehensive feature-rich ecosystem of ABP Studio, remember,
the most important thing.
the tool that lets you build the best possible application.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So as you're out there exploring .NET Aspire and ABP Studio, weighing the pros, the cons, even those price tags,
Right. It all factors in.
keep in mind, we're in the middle of a revolution here. The way we build applications for the cloud, it's changing rapidly.
It really is.
Tools are becoming more specialized, they're more powerful, frankly, more exciting to use.
I'm having more fun than I should admit.
Me too. Me too. But it really begs the question, what's next?
Yeah, where do we go from here? Are we going to see even more specialized tools, each one laser-focused on a tiny part of development?
Or are we going to see this kind of convergence where these tools become these all-in-one powerhouses?
Handling everything from design to deployment?
The suspense is killing me, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. What we do know is this is a thrilling time to be a developer.
Couldn't agree more.
And as you're out there pushing the boundaries, building incredible applications,
Building the future.
building the future, remember, we're here with you every step of the way, ready to take that next deep dive into the world of tech.
Huh?
Until next time.